Hi, everyone. Second podcast episode. I'm excited. Let's dive into it. Today's topic is going to be how to build a good sales team or how to build a good team. So, if you're like me who is managed sales team, this podcast episode will be very interesting for you. It's going to be very useful. And trust me, I've done this for over 2 decades. So I have a lot to say and to share. So grab a drink, relax, and let's talk about how to build a good sales team. So let's dive in and talk about couple of questions first. So I have written down questions and some statistics and some information as usual to make this podcast very informative for all of us. So let's talk about what are the tried and tested effective ways when it comes to managing or building a sales team. How it's done without fail. When do you start applying the tips? And who leads the building? So I guess we're going to spend the whole podcast unpacking. And if you want to interact and be part of this podcast, please feel free to comment down below and share with me any topics or anything you'd like to share so I can incorporate that on my next podcast episode. So let's talk about some statistics. Okay, here are the powerful statistics on how effective leadership positively impacts team performance and success with real world data and clear takeaways. Then in detail, I will be sharing with you in the past my experience, what has worked for me that I believe would still work in this day and age. So let's just go through quickly the statistics. Let's talk about employee engagement and productivity. So number one, statistics says teams led by supportive managers are 3.4 times more engaged, and employees who feel trusted are 53% more to be engaged. 3.4 times more engaged and 53% more likely to be engaged. That's if you have a team leader who supports or who exercise a very supportive approach to the team, and employees who feel trusted on the task given. I think personally we can all share our experiences of our maybe being micromanaged or being given a task and we didn't really feel like our manager or our line manager trusts that we can do the job. So number two, companies with highly engaged teams are 21% more profitable, and profits can rise as much as 200% compared to those with disengaged staff. So let's talk about this part real quick. Companies with engaged teams are 21% more profitable, and profits can rise as much as 200%. That's huge. And of course, the opposite of that is compared to those with disengaged staff, we know already that goes all the way downhill. Let's keep talking about statistics before I share to you my tips and my personal experience. All right, so number three. Better engagement translates to 12% higher individual productivity, and high-performing teams turn over 87% less. So, better engagement. Let's just remember the keywords, which I will actually insert on the podcast video, so you can actually write down or take notes of those keywords that are actually presented on the statistics. Better engagement translates to 12% higher individual productivity, and high performing teams turn over 87% less. So basically, if you really understand team leading or build or leading as a good or a successful team, it is no brainer, but at the same time, it really requires a lot of discipline. It requires a system and a format that needs to be copied and pasted. And at the same time, you need to hire a leader or a team lead who is able to execute all of this. So we're still talking about statistics here, and at this point, so stick around because we are still going to talk about many good stuff in this podcast. So let's talk about another very interesting point from the stats. Teams with highly engaged leaders delivers 17 to 21% more productivity and achieve 10% higher customer satisfaction rate. If you have a very good customer satisfaction rate, there is going to be a repeat business. There is going to be a very solid relationship between your staff or your sales team and your clients and your business. So teams with highly engaged deliver 17 to 21%. So there's a lot of keywords in here, and we're going to go through this very shortly. It's such a hot day in Singapore today that even with my aircon on, I am really melting here. So pardon me fanning in between. Now let's carry on with the stats. Organizations led well are 3.5% times more likely to outperform peers and see overall performance boost up to 38%. Wow. If teams or organizations are led well, 3.5% times more likely to outperform peers and see overall performance boost up to 38%. Now, another statistic shows that psychological safety. Let's talk about psychological safety. Created by inclusive, trusting leaders makes teams 76% more likely to be innovative and 27% more likely to retain top talent. I think this is one of my favorite in the entire statistics, data, or information that I gathered for this podcast. Psychological safety is very significant when it comes to building a good sales team, running a good sales team, and managing a good sales team. So I'll dive deep on this very shortly after I'm done going through the statistics. So bear with me. So next part. We're still on statistics here. Leadership quality versus success. Number one, companies with strong leadership outperform others by 13 times, are about 17% more profitable overall. Effective leaders foster collaboration and growth. 75% of employees say they're more productive under great leadership. How can you disagree on that? It's all real talk. It's all fact-based, and it doesn't matter what industry you're from. When you're working with a team and reporting to a leader, all of this are perfectly relatable. So now, let me share with you my take on this very interesting topic. Basically, the statistics clearly speaks facts, and we know it's the reality, and this is also a problem by itself. A lot of businesses, whether a small business or huge businesses, in my experience and it's no brainer that the success and the failure is coming down to or comes down to a failed leadership. And having said that, let me share with you my takeaway and what I can share with you based on my experience as a team lead for the past 2.5 decades. So basically, when I was preparing my materials for this podcast, first I did my homework. I gathered facts, I gathered statistics. I go through it in a way that it's very easy for me to conduct my point of view on this podcast. And then after I got done doing that, then I wrote down basically the keywords that resonated to the great leaders I have worked with in my early years, and the same great leaders who inspired me to be, I believe, a great leader that I was during those times that I was running a very successful sales team. So let me share with you a few keywords. I'll be typing a text on that for you. So join me as we go through these very awesome tips and keywords that hopefully would help you on your business today. Number one, innovative. So if you listen to the breakdown of the statistics earlier, there are some keywords. So I had taken those keywords and reflected on, did this actually, or did I experience that myself from the great leaders that I used to work with? So innovative. During those times when I was working with the great leaders, the mentors, the bosses, one characteristic that stood out to me is they're being innovative. When you are innovative as a team lead, you earn the trust, the respect, the admiration of your team. You can't beat a good leader who is constantly introducing innovative approach, techniques, tips on top of your wealth of experience. So if you're actually a team leader today, or you're running a team, or you're running an operation where, I don't know, 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, 100 people reports to you, one of the very important characteristics you should really embrace and develop and be very mindful about is your sense of innovation, whether it's in the form of system, tips, techniques, solution. And that to me is one of the best characteristics from all the mentors and leaders that I've worked with in my career, and had really influenced me to be that type of a sales team lead, to be that type of a leader who is constantly looking for ways to innovate. And this was in the late 90s, by the way, so we do not have access on what we have access today. That's the internet. Now, number two, competitive. A good team lead is competitive. Competition starts from within. First, you have to compete to yourself. Again, this could be in form of numbers, performance, ideas, techniques, methods. When you're actually competitive, a lot of great ideas come out of your mind, or a lot of new ideas would even surprise you that you thought about it, or you realize that there's many other ways to get better to something that is already good enough. This is one characteristic I have actually really admired so much to my mentors, because we were constantly in an environment where competitiveness is basically the fuel for us to go to work enjoy our jobs, enjoy ourselves, and really deliver results. Again, competitiveness or competitive sense of competitiveness. If you're running a sales team, it's no-brainer. Really identify the areas that would create a good spirit of competition in your team, whether it's separating the newbies and the experienced ones. Have fun with it. That's how we evolve, or that's how we really learned more about ourselves as salespeople, when we were encouraged to compete to ourselves and to our peers before we compete to our competitors outside. Another characteristic of a good leader for me, support. This word popped into the statistics that I've broken down earlier. So support. Support sounds cliche, but it's the most difficult thing to have when your leader is not a good leader. Support comes in verbal support, physical support, the presence, the accessibility to have a communication with your team lead. Support also is best when it's unsolicited. Like you've never really asked for support yet for anything related to your project that you're struggling with, and your manager or your team lead already know that this is the area that you need support. And so it's one of the best characteristics of a good team leader or a good leader, when you can actually lend a hand and show support. And a lot of leaders fail because they were so focused on, I need to put pressure on them, I need to push them, but you have to support before you could push. Next one, engage. The word engage, again, was taken from the stats that I was sharing with you earlier on, and I found a connection of that to my experience from my mentors, and connection on that to what I've actually perhaps subconsciously or consciously exercised during the years and decades of me leading a sales team. Engage. I think when you say engage, it has a lot to do with really, number one, knowing your team. Not just by their names. Do you know your team? Do you know them one by one, individually, in terms of their strengths and weaknesses as a team member? Not so much on a personal level, but it also helps if you know your team on a little personal level. Perhaps one of them just had a baby. Perhaps one of them is occasionally requiring to travel and visit his or her elderly parents overseas. Things like that. Because this also would influence their ability to deliver and their ability to perform for your project. So engage is something that you need to master as well, but it is the act of exercising it at the same time. So engaging with your team, not just during the time when you're struggling to get on that sales target, but also at the same time. I came from an industry or from the culture where there's constant team building activities. It was a must. It was a must. It was a requirement for us to conduct team building activities on, if not weekly basis, on a monthly basis. Because once you're engaged with your team, and a lot of this happens also outside work. A lot of this happens during team building activities. That's what I was trying to say. So really reflect on your engagement with your team and think about how much activities outside office you've actually shared with them to engage and to really earn that engagement from them to you and you to them. Another key word or another characteristic of a good team lead for me is inclusive. So the word inclusive, again, it was mentioned on the statistics earlier. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, that's exactly right. In fact, it could even be on the top three of what a good leader should be if you want to run a successful team. So when you say inclusive, when your manager or your team lead is inclusive, we live in the day and age where there's a lot of recognition on equality and inclusivity. Gender, age, well, there's also ageism, which I would like to talk about in one of the podcasts. And I digress. So basically, inclusivity within your team. The staff retention, or in order to achieve a very good staff retention score, it's not so much about the numbers. It's also got to do with when your staff or your team members feel that they're actually welcome and they feel like they're included to the group or to the team. So it's your job actually as a team lead to really make sure that your team members, each of them, have or feels that sense of inclusivity. And how do you achieve that? I can share with you what we used to do for inclusivity is whenever we have team building activities, we make sure that it's also structured. It's also strategically planned. It's also allowing the new guys to really integrate with the old guys. Because what happens in any organization or in any office setting is when there's new guys, the new guys seem to be together all the time, or they go for lunch together and they ended up becoming kind of their little group. And then you have the old guys doing the same thing. It's human nature. But based on my experience, what has worked in the past was whenever we do have new staff, we make sure that they feel they get the most attention, they get the most welcoming feeling by including them to the activities that we give to the old guys or to the experienced guys or to the old employees, so that they would integrate and transition better than them just a small group of small guys or new hires. So it's really hot today, by the way. Next one on the list. I love this one, collaboration. So collaboration, I guess, in the 90s or in the late 90s, during the time I was working and being mentored by great leaders, on my way to becoming a leader, on my way to becoming a leader myself, I find that the word collaboration was not really so heavily used. But we live in the day and age now where the word collaboration is just a common word. And that is a great thing because that means there's a lot of encouragement for collaboration. And when your team, you as a leader, when you encourage collaboration amongst your team, whether you're giving them a project to work on as a team, or you say, okay, it would be great if you collaborate with the marketing people or you collaborate with two guys from another operation in Malaysia or in another country where there will be an opportunity to collaborate. So collaboration is so important and it's so good, and the leader should really initiate on that because that also leads to the feeling of inclusivity amongst your team. At the same time, it's a win-win situation. There's just a lot of new ideas and great productivity that would come along with it. So don't forget that word, collaboration. If you're a good team lead, if you want to be a good team leader, remember to always encourage collaboration amongst your team, with other teams, with teams from overseas within your company, because that would only bring in more ideas and great results. Next one, motivation. So I came from this industry, a very special industry. Let me just share with you. So I came from the telemarketing industry, where we were actually promoting and selling hotel memberships that was booming from the late 90s, I would say up to early 2000. I would say a good 15 years where it was booming. There's hotel memberships everywhere, all over Southeast Asia, Asia Pacific, even Middle East and Australia and many other places. So motivation is, I would say, this is the most fundamental characteristic that you have to exercise if you want to be a successful team lead in that industry or in that business that we do. If you are able to motivate, if you are a motivating team leader, you can make your staff do things without having to force them. For instance, making sales. If you're a motivating leader, there is really no need for you to flex on your authority to your team, because they will be so driven and motivated to perform and deliver good numbers for you without you really demanding them to do so. So the key to being a motivator or a good motivator or a leader that is good with motivating, based on my experience, I would say you have to really know what you're doing. You have to be the right hired leader. Let's start with that. If your team can see that you know what you're doing, if the team can see that your company hired you for your expertise, if the team can see that you have an authority for the field or for the project you're assigned to lead, that's the key already to motivating your team. It's not you verbally motivating them, but it's you showing them that you're a leader that has a lot to offer. You're a leader that has a lot of knowledge. You're a leader that will be so useful for them to get to their success. I would say that was my first-hand experience with my mentors during those times, because I feel that every single mentor I've worked with in at least the first decade of my career, where I was gaining experience, gaining confidence, and all that, each of them was putting so many knowledge and so many great things for me to get better on each project. And that to me was motivating. I mean, if you really think about it, if you were to work with someone who has very little knowledge, you know already that chances are it will be very difficult for you to be motivated to work or to work for that leader. Next one, teamwork. Okay, this is big, because if you're a team lead, the most important thing is you're able to drive the team to work as a team. And if as a leader you're not able to administer that, it will be very difficult for your team to work as a team. So it always starts from what you do as a leader. And what I want to say, what you do is what you consciously do. How you consciously position yourself, whether it's in decision making, whether it's in motivational talk, whether it's finding solution or providing solution, your team will only work when they know that the leader is really the most effective, the smartest, the most reliable. It's almost like there's so much pressure on the team lead to be close to perfection. And in my experience as a team lead and has worked with so many great team leaders, I believe that what led the projects I've worked on or worked for to success, it comes down really to the best possible team lead we could have on each project. If your project or if you're running a business and you do not have the most fit team lead, it will really influence the success and the result of your business. So if you're a small business owner, I think this is something I would really highly recommend. And in my playlist, actually on my video playlist, you'd find I've made videos about tips for small business owners. Check it out because the tips there are also relatively connected to if you're actually hiring or if actually what tips do you need to consider before hiring a team lead so that your business will thrive and not end up being run by the wrong hired leader. So next one, I think the last one would be trust. Okay, I think overall, I would say that it's the most difficult thing in my experience. The most difficult is to hire the best team lead possible. But in closing of today's podcast, I would say if you hire someone who has the foundation of leadership, you can train them into the culture that you would like them to be based on the characteristics that I've enumerated on this podcast, then you're able to design or to create a very good team leader for your business. So I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. In closing, if you're a small business owner or you're running an operation, keep in mind that the success of your team is dependent on a very good team lead. So I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. I'll see you on the next one. Please engage on the comment section and I look forward to our next podcast. See you guys. Have a good weekend. And as you can see in Singapore, it's starting to be not so busy, but everyone's coming back from work. So Friday night, TGIF. I'll see you guys on the next podcast. Bye.